Hi, everybody. So I am so excited to give you my report for what ended up being a super epic day at this year's FANX 2018. This day two. This used to be Salt Lake City Comicon before stupid lawsuit, and now it's just called FANX, and it is a pretty great Comic Con. I ended up having an amazing day, and I have to say is a lot of people that are really upset about particularly the photo ops. And I am so glad I didn't do any of the photo ops because evidently it was a total disaster. There were some people were like 4 or 5 hours late in getting their photo ops, or they didn't even happen at all. And I've done 2 photo ops before, one with Carrie Fisher, one with Jodie Benson, and it was worth it for those 2 because that's so epic. But I don't think I'm ever going to do one again because it's so expensive. You just get like 30 seconds. You have to wait in these huge lines. It's just not pleasant experience. And this sounds like this was extra unpleasant. But for me, I ended up having a great time because I knew that there were a lot of grand ballroom panelists that I wanted to see. And I had thought that I was going to do a couple other things, but I got to the grand ballroom at 11 o'clock and or around 10:30 for the 11 o'clock panel, and I knew that Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor were going to be there, and I had watched Xena a little bit, and I just kind of wanted to see. I'd heard they were cool. I just wanted to see, and they were super cool, and I got such a great seat, and I knew there was going to be all this stuff that I would want to see. And so I just made the decision that I was just going to stay in that seat all day long because I was literally the best seat that you could get aside from the zip queue. And particularly, I knew that I wanted to have that seat for Jeff Goldblum. And I'm so glad I did because a lot of people didn't get in to see Jeff Goldblum. And because I already had my seat, I got in. So it was pretty amazing. And so it started off, I ended up going to 10 panels. I stayed in my seat the whole time. By the time I finished, I was starving, but it was worth it because it was so cool. And I don't know. Even if the photo ops were really cheap, I still think it's better to be in the panels. Then you can hear the whole stories, and so yeah. So it was really cool to hear from Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor. You could tell they had this really great chemistry. And I was so embarrassed afterwards because I realized I had accidentally spelled Xena wrong in my tweeting because I was just tired and I spelled it with a Z instead of an X, which is so stupid. But oh well. They did at one point sing "Deep in the Heart of Texas," which was really funny. And I didn't realize that Lucy Lawless was such a gifted singer. I mean, I knew there was the musical episode of Xena, but I didn't realize that she was, a Broadway performer. So that's pretty cool. And she said at one point that Sigourney Weaver in Aliens was her role model, and that they were on a mission was to look for the love in a scene, and to try to emphasize that. And they talked about someone asked them about being LGBTQ icons, and that that was something that just happened, and that they were proud of that. So it was really cool. Then next on the panel was Evangeline Lilly, and she had her writing partner, Rodrigo Costas, I believe is his name, for this book series that she's doing called Squicker Wonkers, I think. The Squicker Wonkers. And it actually looked really cute, and the drawings looked really good. It had a sort of a little bit of a... she said she was really inspired as a kid. She was a non-reader, but she got super into Edward Gorey. And I can kind of see, Edward Gorey is more gothic than this, but I don't know. I could kind of see some influence. It definitely had sort of a medieval, a little bit quality to it. It looked really fun, and she was really cute, and she just said to middle schoolers, all your best ideas are in you now, because this was an idea that she had when she was younger. And then I guess she's done the prequel, and there's going to be supposedly 18 books, which is pretty crazy. And she read a part of her book. And so that was all really cool. Someone asked her about Real Steel. She said that the problem was it was advertised incorrectly, so it didn't get to the right people. So profitable, probably no Real Steel 2, but I'm not a huge sequel person, so I'm okay with that. She said, my advice to young girls is they are powerful because of their femininity, not in spite of it, which I really appreciated. I don't think you get that message that often from, that you got to be like a warrior woman or whatever. And I really appreciated that. She says, it's so important to me that when I have the chance to play a woman who is macho, that she's the opposite of macho, so that she still has that femininity. I really liked that. And she says, if you were born to be extra girly and a princess, that's powerful. And if you were born to drive trucks and be tough, that's powerful. Oh, hey, great. We got a comment. Extreme. It was an extreme day. It was crazy. She said that she never wanted to do a solo Wasp film until she saw the Captain Marvel poster. And she's like, that does look pretty cool. And she said if she had to take one book on a deserted island, she would take Atlas Shrugged, which I thought was interesting. You don't hear that from many celebrities. So she was really fun. I really enjoyed her. And then we got the third panel was Michael Rosenbaum and Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling. And they were so funny. I was dying laughing. Like, especially Michael Rosenbaum. He was so funny. I just realized I completely butchered his name on my Twitter, but he was hilarious. Like, I couldn't even tweet very much because it was just like all over the place and crazy. But I don't know. He was very funny. And I guess he has done some stand-up in at like the Comedy Store and stuff like that. And you could really tell, and he is Lex Luthor if you never watched the show. He was so funny, and Tom Welling was so great, and the two of them had such great chemistry. I would love to see just like a buddy road trip movie with the two of them. That would be so funny if it was written well, because they are very funny, and they were so charming. I loved Tom Welling. He was so charming and sweet. And then Michael Rosenbaum was like nuts and crazy and so funny. And yeah, it was probably the highlight of the whole day. I was laughing so hard. And I guess Michael Rosenbaum has a podcast, which makes me way more interested in listening to that podcast now, because I just thought he was a hoot. So they were great. And they talked obviously a lot about Smallville and the show, and, doing certain scenes and working with different actors. And it was really cool. Then next we had Rainn Wilson, and that was really neat to have him. And I thought it was really cool that for all of the panelists, I felt like the questioning was really good. There was really only one, I think, bad question of the whole day, where somebody tried to give a spec script to the Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor, and they were like, no, that's not happening. That was like, oh, what a dummy, because they read the rules like so carefully right before. So Rainn Wilson, though, he was really great. He said Jerry Lewis, Bob Hope movies were his comedic influences. They said, I had an unhappy family, so we just watched television together. And he said, I would record Monty Python episodes and movies, and I would memorize them. And he says, I'm intrigued by interesting, flawed characters. I'm a misfit. I could never play a Mormon dad. And he said, The Office felt like a touch show from the beginning, despite almost getting canceled like 10 times. He said, I'm going next week to record more Harry Mudd for Star Trek Discovery. So that's kind of exciting that he's definitely coming back for Discovery. It was so funny in the middle of his panel. Because people were like, who do you keep in touch with the most from The Office? And right in the middle of his panel, he calls Jenna Fisher on the phone, but it just went to her message, and he left her a message. He was like, how dare you not answer? It was really funny and risky, because what if she'd had like thank you for calling, 545, whatever. It was really funny. He said that when they auditioned, he was actually the very first person out of anybody to audition for anything with The Office. And he auditioned for both Michael and for Dwight. At the time, and I guess he was put up with a bunch of different people. Originally, he'd auditioned with Bob Odenkirk and some other different things, who was originally planned to play Michael. So that was really interesting. Somebody asked him if Dwight would get rid of the Dundies, and he said yes, that he would, which was funny. And he said that his go-to karaoke song is "Smells Like Teen Spirit," but sung like a lounge singer, which I thought was funny. And then the next panel was David Tennant. So this was panel 5. And that was really exciting to have David Tennant on. It was really cool because he worked with Jodie Whittaker, so he was able to talk a little bit about her becoming the Doctor. And it also, there's this thing in Utah called fry sauce, which is just basically mayonnaise and ketchup. And somehow that got brought up, and he was like, "I'm not impressed with fry sauce." That was funny. And he said a lot about how it all comes down to the script. The script is what saves everything. And he said, "I think the Doctor can be anything or anyone, and that Jodie owns it and will win any remaining doubters over." So that's really cool because she's the new Doctor. And he said, "Playing the Doctor was a very intense time, but that means it was a time of life unlike any other." He said it was super intense. And, now that he has kids and stuff like that, it would be hard, but it was a really great experience. He talked about working with Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat and the experiences with that. And he says that when I did Doctor Who, I never thought I'd be in a show with a more iconic theme song. And then I was cast in DuckTales. That was pretty funny, I thought. He talked a little bit about that. And he said that they just recorded a Christmas special for DuckTales. So that's kind of exciting. And he said that his favorite alien that he ever played around was John Sims as the Master. That was pretty cool. And he said that the Daleks that were a lot of fun to play with as well. And let's see here. Let me find it. Sorry. He said, if someone asked him, "How do you enjoy being everyone's favorite Doctor?" And he says, "It depends who you talk to. Everyone has their own favorite Doctor, and every Doctor has their fans. That's the joy of it, that every generation has their own Doctor." And he said, everyone deserves to have a Doctor. And he says, favorite Shakespearean character was Hamlet. He finds Hamlet endlessly fascinating. And he says, taking on the role of the Doctor, that means so much to so many, is an honor, but also a lot of pressure that you don't screw it up. So that was really cool. So that was David Tennant. He was really funny. He was great. And then Jeff Goldblum was next. And he was late, I think, because also of all the photo op madness. And but they were able to, even with some of those problems, they were able to give everybody, I think, the time that they needed. So Jeff Goldblum. Chuck Norris was really the only one because he was a half an hour late because of the photo ops, I'm sure. But Jeff Goldblum was really cool. He didn't take questions from the audience, and so there wasn't actually all that much about the movies. It was more just about weird things with him, but that was fine. I would have liked to have heard more about particularly Jurassic Park and Thor Ragnarok because I love those movies so much. But he talked about his band, and he said if he read all these random weird tweets. And he says that if he was a nut, he'd be an almond or a pistachio. And there was a point where he ends up purifying with water, the audience. That was pretty funny. And he didn't know what a porg was. That was pretty funny. And it was kind of just random stuff from Jeff Goldblum. but it was really good. He's the best. And it was so crazy. There, a lady next to me was saying that her friends were like, "Oh, we're not interested in hearing Jeff Goldblum." I'm like, "What? How could you not be interested in hearing Jeff Goldblum? That's madness." And then the seventh person on the panel was Manu Bennett. And I'd heard of him before, but I hadn't seen a whole lot. But I didn't want to lose my spot because I knew that Karl Urban and some other stuff were coming. And so I just stayed. And it was actually really amazing. He told this incredible story that his mother, he was in a terrible car accident when he was a young man. And his mother actually died. And before that, he'd been getting bullied super bad by this kid at school, very badly. And I guess when he woke up out of a 2-week coma, this boy that had been the bully was actually there. And they ended up, because he was so jealous, I guess, that his mother had died. And he was so jealous of Manu's mother. And they ended up repairing their relationship. And he ended up being best man at this person's wedding, which was just an incredible story. Amazing story. And he did like a Maori blessing, and he was really cool. I was very impressed with him. He seemed like the nicest guy in the world. So I was glad to get to hear his panel, even though I'm not really that familiar with his work. So anyway, and then the eighth panel was Karl Urban, and it was really cool because they announced at the beginning of the panel that there was no pictures or video allowed in his panel. This was part of Karl Urban's contract. And I was just really impressed with Salt Lake because there was not a single picture, both either taken visibly or I didn't see any on Twitter, which I thought was very impressive. And I don't think that every audience of 5,000 people would be that respectful of those rules. He talked about being on Almost Human, which was only ran for 1 season. It was a good show. Almost Human was an amazing experience, but I don't like to work that hard. He was kind of smiling. He said it was pretty grueling. And he said that his first initial interview with J.J. Abrams for Star Trek, that he thought it went terrible. He didn't think that they liked him at all. But then, they ended up calling him back. So that was pretty interesting. He said that the Star Trek team, it really feels like a family. And he said that Paramount that the cast has fallen out of contract, but they have a director, they have a script, but it's just a question of kind of getting everybody together. He said that it just takes time. The entire cast, including Chris Pine, really want to make another Star Trek. So that should be interesting. He also said, when I told my dad I wanted to be an actor, he said, "You meant to say doctor." Well, after Star Trek, who got the last laugh? Because he plays a doctor. He plays Bones on Star Trek. So that's pretty funny. He talked about Thor Ragnarok. He said the worst part was doing the reshoots, because I guess it was super, super hot when they're doing their reshoots. Different pickups. And he talked a lot about Lord of the Rings. And he said the great thing about Lord of the Rings is they went to such great lengths to create Middle Earth around you. Like, you really felt like you were in Middle Earth, which is pretty cool. And he said if he could trade roles with anybody on Thor Ragnarok, it would be Cate Blanchett. So that was kind of fun. And so, yeah, it was really cool. He was super charming. It was great. And then number 9 on the panel was Gaten Matarazzo, who is on Stranger Things, and he was so adorable. Yeah, I mean, I knew he would be because of the show, but I didn't realize that he had such a Broadway background, that he had been on a number of Broadway shows. He ended up doing The Worm at one point, which is really funny. And I guess his birthday is tomorrow. And so right in the middle of the panel, there was all of a sudden all this smoke, and he was totally surprised. And then Darth Vader came out with some stormtroopers, and we all gave him a birthday present. And then we all sang happy birthday. So that was pretty cool. That was fun. He said, "I still feel like a kid because I am a kid. Through your whole life, you can feel that way. Just because you are presented with adult responsibilities doesn't mean you have to be boring." I thought that was cool. And he also talked about how he said, "Most things I've wanted to be rebooted have been rebooted and not rebooted well." And he said that his parents raised him right, because he knew a lot of these 80s, 70s, and 80s classics he'd seen. That was cute. And I guess it took him 3 years of auditioning for Broadway roles because of his lisp, which I thought was really interesting. His favorite day of filming on Stranger Things season 1 was the first scene with the Dungeons and Dragons. That was pretty cool. I guess they got the giggles super bad, so that was funny. And they asked him about Dart in season 2. So Dustin and Dart just weren't meant for each other. He just couldn't be a pet. That was kind of cute. And I guess on the Three Musketeers scene, he had to eat 15 candy bars that day at least, he said, because there were so many different spots where they end up moving. And and it was really cool because there were so many teens and younger kids that were asking him questions and were so inspired by Stranger Things, which is really awesome. And he was just adorable. That was great. So then the final panel of the day, I was so hungry by this point, was Chuck Norris. And again, he was really late. And I think that was because there was all kinds of photo op issues, is my guess. And so it was like 7:35 by the time he got there with his wife. And it was kind of weird because he had all of his stories and things written down in sheets, and he would just read it, as far as meeting Bruce Lee, working with Bruce Lee, and some of his other stories. And I don't know if his memory is failing or if there's something like that going on, but it was interesting. I hope he's okay. But he said that he trained with Bruce Lee for 4 nights a week for 2 years. I didn't realize that they had trained together for that long. Of course, he's in the one of the dragon movies. I forget the name. But the Bruce particularly asked him to be in the film, and they put the fight together. And he said, "Bruce, you're the only one I'd allow to kill me that way," which was funny. And so that was really interesting and cool. And he talked a little bit about the Chuck Norris FANX, and that it started in 2006 with just 3, and it's over millions, and it's just grown and been crazy. He said that his first karate competition was here in Salt Lake, and that he had over 100. He's had 183 championships and only 10 losses. So that's pretty amazing. And so that was really cool to hear from. And his wife read this tribute of Chuck, of her husband, that was very touching, very sweet, about the kind of man that he was. And so that was the end of the day. I was exhausted by the end of it. I am exhausted. I was starving. I did get to see my friend AJ, so that was fun. And yeah, so tomorrow I will not be doing this because I have some other stuff that I want to do. But for one day, it was really cool and intense and crazy, and something I'll never forget. So oh, sorry. Yeah, so we're live. I don't know if it's too late if you already left. But it was just a crazy, crazy day, and it was really fun. Probably the highlight of the day was the Smallville panel, because I just thought that Michael Rosenbaum was so funny. I was laughing so hard. And Tom Welling, they were just both so great. That was probably my favorite part of the whole day. So anyway, there you go. That was the day. Let me know in the comment section what you think. And David Tennant was also, they were all great. It was just great. So let me know what you think. And I will talk to you all tomorrow about tomorrow's day. So thanks again. And I will talk to you all later. Bye.